Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taramina.
Welcome to the special OAA Now football preview show, the Red Edition here on Sammy Taramina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, blog of Inside the OAA, and with host between Termina's at Orion Neighborhood Television. I'd like to welcome our friends watching on ON TV, on YouTube, and also on the local voice on SoundCloud. Of course, we talked about the blue and the white a couple weeks ago and last week respectively. Now we're going to talk about the red division. This week we're going to talk about the Highlanders of Rochester Adams. This is a football team last year that made the playoffs before losing a heartbreaker in the district final to Utica Eisenhower. So here is Adams coach Tony Petrino talking about the Highlanders heading into the 2018 season.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tony Petrino. I'm the head coach at Rochester Adams. This is my 16th season. I'm glad I didn't have to go right after Coach Rowley. That was pretty well done. A lot of people are saying things about Coach Harrison. For all the young men in the room, we're all teachers first. And I want you guys to learn from him, because one of the easy things for people to do is be changed by their success. There's a lot of talent here. And when you have success, it's hard to be humble. Coach Harrington's a legend, the greatest coach in the history of our state. He's always treated me with respect, especially when I know nothing. And he has not been changed by all the state championships. So that's something you want to emulate. That's somebody you want to be like. So Coach Harrington, thanks for being a great role model. As far as Rochester Adams goes, we had a decent season last season. We had a lot of great two-way players. They're hard to replace. But the beautiful thing about our sport is every year is a great opportunity for a rebirth. So we're very, very excited. So I have our two captains. They're going to introduce themselves.
Cole Mitchell, my O-line, D-line, and this is my third year on varsity.
Nico Jackson, slot back, safety, second year on varsity.
Our outlook is, again, to try to compete what I think is the best division around. I want to congratulate Coach Richardson and Carson for their state championship, Coach Belby for their finals appearance, and for beating us last year. We're going to do our very best to make the league proud and show up every Friday night. Thank you.
The Highlanders could be a team worth watching this year. And then you look at Adams. Of course, it's a football team that could do some damage this year. I caught up in an interview with Petrino talking about the state of the Highlanders and some concerns heading into the year. We got Adams football coach Tony Petrino here. Of course, last year was a very successful year for you guys. Let's talk about, of course, now you have to replace your quarterback again. Zach Solon no longer there, but you got Carter Ferris, who's showing some proven experience.
Yeah, so, and Carter's coming out party was actually against Lake Orion. Our quarterback got hurt a little bit, he's bleeding. Carter went in, his first ever high school pass was a touchdown. So he's a gamer, and we're expecting great things from Carter.
Talk about your running game, of course, a little bit, because in a veer, you have to have a very good running back in that veer option offense. So how's the running situation looking?
Well, we lost all four of our key ball carriers last year, and they were all really, really good. But it's a balanced offensive attack, and we have quite a few guys we think can step in, and those are big shoes to fill. But that's going to be the big test to see how good we're going to be, is how good are those kids coming in to try to make those plays.
What are your expectations this year, Coach?
I'm not sure yet. As you heard all these guys say today, our league is ridiculously tough, and there's no easy games. So we're going to try to get better. We have a lot of young guys that are going to play early in the year. We have to get better early because obviously the competition starts. So we'll see what happens. We're going to try to compete.
Thank you very much, Coach.
You got it, as always, thank you.
Yeah. The veer option offense is a very elusive offense, as mentioned. Of course, you always have to have great running backs, great fullbacks, always to do well. But Adams is a very good quarterback in Carter Ferris. And he's going to be the guy this year over at Adams this year running that veer option offense. Now, they do got some great linemen as well, as mentioned, of course. But let's look at the Adams schedule, of course. The Highlanders, they do open up the year with Rochester. Of course, they have owned Rochester. They're going to be at Rochester this year. Rochester has not beaten Adams since 1996, and that's 21 straight games. So that's going to be an interesting matchup for Adams going up against Rochester. Of course, Rochester's got a ton of experience coming back. Then they got to play Bloomfield Hills on August 31st. That is going to be back at Bloomfield Hills, of course. Adams winning the Bloomfield Hills and just steamrolled them 54-14 a year ago. And then, of course, week 3, they open up their new home field, their new turf field against Lake Orion, of course. Last year, the Highlanders shocked the Dragons at Lake Orion 39-8. Did not see that one coming. That was a big-time blowout. It was a shocking blowout there. And then they got to play Clarkston. Of course, they're at Clarkston where Adams beat Clarkson 21-14 a year ago. And that'll be an interesting matchup, of course, for Adams, considering that you got the strength of both teams are going to be up front, especially when you look at the matchup between Rocco Splinter, Garrett Dillinger going up against Cole Mitchell. And then, of course, you look at the game on the 21st. They take on Oxford. Of course, Adams won 33-13 last season over the Wildcats. And then September 28th, which is going to be a very interesting one. Adams has to go to the Swamp to take on the West Bloomfield Lakers. Of course, last season, West Bloomfield escaped with a 17-16 win last year over at Adams. So now they got to go in the Swamp, and that'll be a very interesting matchup there. October the 5th, they got to take on Harrison. Of course, at home, of course, last year, Adams won. In 2016, Adams won 21-9 when they were in the white division. And then October the 12th, they have to go to Southfield. Of course, last year the Highlanders won 38-14 at home last year against the Warriors. And then, of course, October the 19th, they close out the year with Stony Creek. Of course, Adams' own Stony Creek won the 4 of the last 5 meetings, including last year's 45-7 debacle last year over the Cougars. So Adams, a lot of expectation for them this year. A lot of hope this year for Coach Tony Petrino and his team. It's going to be an interesting year at Adams this year. A lot of questions, but also a lot of hype surrounding this Adams team. Let's look at another team here. It's the Blackhawks of Bloomfield Hills. Of course, this is a football team that had a lot of good things this year happen than last year. 15-5 last 2 years, but now gone is John Paddock, Ty Zielinski, and Jack Sape. So now here is Bloomfield Hills coach Dan Loria talking about the state of the Blackhawks.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. First, I'd like to thank Eric Vernon and Rochester High School for having this day. I look forward to it. I know the kids look forward to it as well. And I'd like to recognize John Harrington for the great man you are and the great coach you've been. We've been 5 years now at the new high school, and the last 2 years have been good. Made the playoffs last 2. Last year, they had a lot to do with our success last year and playing the Red, which is extremely competitive from week 1 all the way through to the end. And this group, we graduated a lot of kids from last year's team, and these guys behind me have kind of taken the reign and have made sure that workouts have gone the way they should this summer. Attendance was where it needed to be, and have continued throughout this week with condition with that same attitude. And we're gonna have to grow up as the season goes and things go, and we grow up week in and week out and get better and better. We can see what happens. But they're a great group of guys, and every year I say it all the time, they work hard. It makes my job easy. And what happens on Friday night happens on Friday night. But these guys will have a lot to do with that, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
My name is Darren Mack. I'm a starting wide receiver. It's my second year as a varsity.
Jacob Gasso, senior running back.
Michael Dramer, offense and defensive line.
Ethan Polselli, senior center.
Thank you, and good luck to everybody this year.
The Blackhawks are going to be very inexperienced this year when you look at it, and when you look at the season, it does spell doom, but there is hope for Bloomfield Hills when you look at the season. Of course, the strength's going to be up front, but the schedule looks daunting when you look at it. Of course, they do open up at home with Utica. Of course, it's the first ever meeting between Utica and Bloomfield Hills. And then August 31st, they got to play Rochester Adams. Of course, at home, of course, last year, Bloomfield Hills lost 54-14 to them last year. And that'll be very interesting there. And then September the 7th, they got to play Southfield, where Southfield won 23-20. Or Southfield lost 23-22 to Bloomfield Hills last year, and that was a shocking upset a year ago there. And September the 14th, they resumed their rivalry game with West Bloomfield. Of course, last year in the regular season, they shocked the Lakers in the Swamp. And in the playoffs, of course, West Bloomfield got the revenge on Bloomfield Hills. West Bloomfield is 4-1 against Bloomfield Hills in their last 5 games. Then September the 21st, they got to play Groves. Of course, it's the first meeting since 2013 where Bloomfield Hills lost 47-19 to the Falcons back in 2013. And September 28th, they got to play Clarkson. Of course, they lost 3 straight against the Wolves. And, It's going to be a tough match for Bloomfield Hills going up against Clarkson. Then October the 5th, they go to Lake Orion and take on the Dragons. Of course, Bloomfield Hills has beaten Lake Orion the last two straight times, but the game is at Lake Orion this year, and who knows what could happen in that one. And then October 12th, they got to play Oxford, where Bloomfield Hills won 26-14 a season ago. And then Rochester, of course, they won 40-13 back in 2016. So when you look at Bloomfield Hills, they got to replace a ton. Got to replace the quarterback. Of course, obviously, when you have a guy like John Paddock, it's going to be hard to replace. Now, Bloomfield Hills has got two guys that can fill the role possibly, and we'll see what happens with Bloomfield Hills going forward. So the Blackhawks, it'll be very interesting to see what they have this year, and it'll be very interesting for Coach Dan Laurie and his team heading into the year. Okay, now when we come back, we're going to talk three more teams here on OAA Now's Football Preview Show, Red Edition. Welcome back to a special OAA Now Football Preview Show Media Day here. I am Sammy Terramina here. Of course, this is the Red Edition here. We're going to talk about three teams this year. We're going to talk first is the defending state champion Clarkson Wolves. Now, when you look at the last season for the Wolves, they had everything go right for them. Of course, when you look at the playoff matchups, they took out Grand Blanc. They went into Davison, steamrolled Davison. And then, of course, the big one I thought that got them to Ford Field last year was the win against Holland West Ottawa at Holland, where they came back in the second half, and then took out Novi Detroit Catholic for beating West Bloomfield 3-2 in the state final. So when you look at Clarkson's outlook, they got a lot back. When you look at, of course, their two linemen and Rocco Splinter and Garrett Dillinger, along with the strength of their team, which is going to be the running game this year. So here's Kurt Richardson at the podium talking about the Wolves.
Hello everybody, I'm Kurt Richardson. This is my 31st year here at Clarkston, and I'd also like to thank Eric Vernon and the Rochester people for hosting this, and I'd also like to acknowledge John. He has set the standard for all coaches to, he's set the bar. I've got my four captains here today. They're going to introduce themselves.
My name is Brendan Barker. I'm a middle linebacker.
JVR Suggs, outside linebacker.
Jake Jensen, quarterback.
Jake Paulette, strong safety and running back.
Guys, I'd also like to agree with Eric Vernon. This is the best league in the state of Michigan from top to bottom. Go OAA.
I do agree with Richardson there. I think this is the best league in the OAA. Of course, the OAA is one of the best leagues in the entire state of Michigan, and this is by far one of the toughest divisions in the state of Michigan, the Red Division. So I caught up with Richardson talking about the state of the Wolves heading into the season. I got the head coach of the defending state champion, Division I state champ, Clarkson Wolves, Kurt Richardson here. Kurt, it's been a really nice year last year, winning the whole thing, but some questions heading into the year for you guys.
There's always questions. There was questions last year too.
Talk about the team that you have. Of course, your running back situation. You have a very good line coming in, and then you have two good running backs coming. Talk about the impact of the running game and how it's going to help young quarterback and Jake Jensen develop.
Well, we're a run-first team. We always have been, and that will allow Jake to pick and choose the passing game. And he's a very capable kid, and we got very capable wide receivers. So I think as the season advances, we'll become, a little more balanced.
What's your expectation this year, Kurt?
Our expectations are the same as every year. We want to win the first game first. We want to win our league. We want to beat Lake Orion, and we want to make a run in the playoffs.
What is your week one opponent against Granville? Talk about that matchup before I let you go.
Granville's a very good program. They got like 18 starters back. They play smash mouth football. So it's going to be a great game in the big house.
Thank you real much, Coach.
You're welcome.
The Clarkston Wolves, very interesting this season. Of course, I read a lot about the Wolves. Of course, they only have 55 players on that team, which is kind of very odd considering that they've had a lot. They've had between around 80, 100 kids in the last couple seasons, but only 55 this year. It's kind of shocking. The strength of the team, as mentioned, of course, the offensive line, and then the weakness problems could be the depth. So I'm curious to see how Clarkston does this year with the team they have. The strength will definitely be Splinter and Dillinger for sure, of course, helping out with their two running backs in when you look at Jake Belletti, and of course their transfer from Holly this year in Jake Honstetter. So let's look at the Wolves' schedule when you look at Clarkston. They do, as Kurt mentioned in the interview, they open up with Granville. Granville, a playoff team a year ago. They lost to Holland West Ottawa in the playoffs. This is the first meeting between the two teams, but Clarkston and Granville are no strangers to other sports, particularly in softball, where Clarkston did beat Granville in the playoffs in 2016 when 2017 that year when Clarkston softball did knock off Granville. So it'll be an interesting matchup to see how those two teams meet in the big house at Granville. In the big house. Be a good matchup between those two teams. So I'm curious to see how Clarkston does, especially against Granville's wing T type of offense that Granville does possess. Then they got to play West Bloomfield. The Lakers, of course. Clarkston lost in the regular season last year to West Bloomfield, but as mentioned, Clarkston did get revenge on the Lakers in the state championship game, knocking them off 3-2 to win their third state championship in 5 years. Then they got to play Troy. This is a very interesting matchup. This is the first meeting between the two teams since 2015 where Clarkston just hammered Troy 42-0. And now that game is also at Troy, so that's going to be a interesting matchup there. And then they got to go back into league play Rochester Adams. Of course, the Highlanders beat Clarkston 21-14 a year ago, but that game now is going to be at Clarkston. So that'll be very interesting right there. Then September the 21st, they got to play Southfield over at Southfield. Clarkston beat the Warriors 17-7 a year ago. And when you look at that matchup, it's going to be very interesting on the new field of Southfield A&T. So it'll be very interesting there. Then September the 28th, they got to play Bloomfield Hills, of course. The Wolves beat the Blackhawks 34-20 a season ago, as mentioned. Clarkston's won 3 straight against Bloomfield Hills. Then October the 5th, they get to play Oxford, of course. Against the Wildcats, Clarkston's won 7 straight games against the Wildcats. And then October the 12th, the annual Lake Orion-Clarkston rivalry. It's a pink-out game for both teams, of course. The Wolves have won 7 straight against the Dragons. Last season was very, very tight, even though the score didn't indicate it, but it was a very tight game between the Wolves and the Dragons, and that one. And then, of course, Clarkston closed out the regular season against Oak Park. Of course, the Knights, beat the Wolves 14-7 back in 2016, but that game's going to be at Clarkston this year, so it'll be very interesting to see how the Wolves and the Knights face off with each other. So a very interesting season coming up for Clarkston. It's going to be Clarkston be a team worth watching, especially not only in the league, but also in the state of Michigan as well. So that's the insight on the Clarkston Wolves. Let's go to another team that could make some noise this year, and that's the Lake Orion Dragons. The Dragons, 16-21 since 2013. That's not going to get the job done. Only one playoff appearance since. That's not going to get the job done. So when you look at Lake Orion, this is a team that has to make some noise this year, and they could do some this year. So here is Lake Orion coach John Blackstock explaining the state of the Dragons.
Good afternoon. I guess we're using this one here. Good afternoon. My name is John Blackstock. This is my second year as head coach at Lake Orion High School, 21st year overall at Lake Orion. I'd also like to thank Coach Vernon for putting on today. I know a lot of the organization fell on him this year, and really appreciate you highlighting not only our great sport, but the outstanding players and coaches that are in this league. I brought along with us 4 returning players that have, like so many of you, done a great job in the offseason in leading our program, and really excited about them. And with the hard work that they've put in, we keep reminding them, like Coach Flaherty said, hard work is kind of really the standard now, and we can't lull ourselves into this. Well, we've worked hard. That's not enough in the off season. And they've done a great job of really bringing our team together and gelling our whole program from 9th through 12th grade. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves here.
Chris Vernon, senior, offensive line, defensive line. Brian Robinson, wide receiver, senior.
Hunter Chambers, O-line, D-line, senior.
Josh Finch, outside linebacker, senior.
As I said, 4 great, outstanding young men that are some of our hardest workers, great leaders, and great student athletes. And it's also fun to stand in the huddle and have to look up to them, which we haven't done lately in Lake Orion, but having some size is hopefully going to help us. Our outlook for the team this year, on top of the always challenging schedule that we all have in the OAA, we're excited to kick off the season on Thursday, August 23rd, at the University of Michigan against Lapeer High School. We're also excited to finish the season on the road down at Monroe High School. I'm really proud of the kids in our program, 9th through 12th grade. If I had to describe them right now, I'd say bought in and hungry. Going 3-6 last year was humbling for all of us in Lake Orion, but their involvement in the winter lifting and in the off-season training and camps has been outstanding. Most outstanding has been their commitment to each other and really creating a fun environment where they hold each other accountable. On the varsity team, we have a unique blend of 36 juniors and 32 seniors. We had 55 freshmen and 47 sophomores show up Wednesday night to equipment issue, so we're excited about football in Lake Orion. In closing, like a lot of the coaches have said, and I'm sure they will say, my hat's off to the great student athletes in this league. Whether you're a 5-star or a 0-star, the one thing you all are football players, and that's something special, okay? Because football, as we know, requires the most sacrifice and the most hard work of any sport out there, and most people don't understand that unless they've gone through it. My hat's off to the great coaches in this league. I'm proud to be a member of the fraternity of coaches that are in here, and I learn from watching you guys every day, and like I said, last year was humbling. During the last 2 years, I've been asked a lot what happened to Lake Orion football in the last few years, and I keep saying nothing happened to Lake Orion football. What happened is the OAA conference is the most competitive conference in the league, as a lot of you have pointed out. And in Lake Orion, we keep talking about competing, and I always thought of competing as having a winner and a loser. And when you really break down the word of compete, it comes from 2 Latin words, com, which means together, and petri, which means striving for excellence. And that's what's gone on in the OAA, striving for excellence. All of us pushing each other to be better, because there's not a week off in this league, whether you're in the red, the white, or the blue. With the great coaches and outstanding athletes, there's not a week off, and we all know that. Everybody knows that. The one thing I don't think people really understand that are outsiders to our great conference is the amount of respect that we have as players, coaches, and communities for each other. It's fun to go to battle with all of you and then walk off that field and shake hands and look each other in the eye and know that the respect that we have for each other. So looking forward to a great season. Good luck to all of you, and let's keep making this conference great. Thank you.
That I agree with Coach John Blackstock is, the league has gotten better. And when you look at the Dragons, notice that something here, they went back to the uniforms that were very interesting. Of course, the 2013-2014 home look, of course, with the white elbows, and they're going to the road white with the green elbows on there. I think that's an interesting look for this team heading into the year. So I caught up with John Blackstock talking about the Dragons. Of course, the strength of the team for sure. They've got to address some things, especially in the secondary, has me concerned heading into the year. But I addressed Coach John Blackstock on some of these things. Okay, I got Lake Orion football coach John Blackstock here. Of course, Coach Blackstock, this is your second year in the league. So talk about how Miss Media Day has been to you.
Media Day is always exciting. Opportunity to get to see some of the great athletes that are in this conference. And just as important, get to hear from the great coaches in this conference.
Talk about the big concerns, of course. One of the concerns I have is the secondary position for you guys. How's that secondary looking?
We're excited. We've got 2 returning guys at corner, and Marcus Brown and Sam Perillo. But we've got some young guys from the JV team that are coming up and have done a really good job in the summer 7-on-7 and the summer trainings, which are really going to push Marcus and Sam for those starting positions and be in the mix of being able to play. at safety, that's probably what you're talking about is the biggest concerns. But we're excited. We've got some kids back there like Russell Hastings and Lucas Spencer, Drew Van Hack, among a couple others that are underclassmen that are really pushing each other. Right now I see about 4 guys that are battling for that starting spot.
What are your expectations this year, Coach?
Expectations are the same. Those don't change, of being a contender and right in the hunt, battling for that OAA title and trying to make the playoffs.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks.
The Dragons could be right in the thick of it this year when you look at the team they have back. Strength of the team for sure is going to be the Lions up front. And, of course, they do have the only returning quarterback in the league when you look at Blaze Lauer back out of the teams in this division. So when you look at the schedule for Lake Orion, they do open up at the Big House against Lapeer. Of course, Lapeer's got a really good quarterback and a really good running back that they're going to have to contend with this year. Of course, Lapeer is an interesting team. They're one of the top teams in the Saginaw Valley League, and I expect the Lightning to be up there as well with teams like Grand Blanc and Davison and Flint Carmen Ainsworth as well. So then Lake Orion does open up their new home field, their new home turf against the Wildcats of Oxford. That's a double trophy game for sure. Of course, Lake Orion has won the last 3 meetings against Oxford, and this will be very interesting again. Of course, I expect it to be another up and down, nip and tuck street fight between the Dragons and the Wildcats there. And then September the 7th, they go to Rochester Adams. Of course, Rochester Adams embarrassed Lake Orion 39-8 last year on its home field, and now Lake Orion goes down to Rochester Adams this year to take on the Highlanders. September the 14th is going to be an interesting game for the Dragons. They got to take on the Red Hawks at home. Of course, the Dragons have won the last 2 meetings against Troy Athens, but the last time the Red Hawks and Lake Orion took on each other at Lake Orion, it was Troy Athens that pulled off a 21-14 stunning upset 2 years ago. And that'll be very interesting there. And then September 21st, the Dragons have to go to the Swamp, where they have lost 4 straight games to the West Bloomfield Lakers. Of course, last year was tough. You know what I mean? Because the last 3 games, of course, it was not very good. But last year, I thought Lake Orion put some fight in last year in that game against West Bloomfield. In that one, September the 28th, they take on Southfield. Last year, Lake Orion lost 24-16 to the Warriors on their home field. But the last time Lake Orion went into Southfield, they did beat Southfield down there 21-14 2 years ago. And that'll be a very interesting matchup between the Dragons and the Warriors. Those two teams have played each other tight in those games. Then October the 5th, Lake Orion has Bloomfield Hills coming to Lake Orion for their homecoming. And that'll be very interesting there because Bloomfield Hills has won the last 2 meetings against Lake Orion, but both those games have been in Bloomfield Hills. Now Bloomfield Hills has to take the ride up north to M24 to Scripps Road, and that'll be very interesting there in that one. Then October the 12th, they take on Clarkston at home. Of course, Clarkston's won 7 of the last straight meetings against Lake Orion, and it's also the pink game for both those teams. And then Lake Orion closed out the year down in Monroe. Of course, it's the first meeting since 1998 when the Dragons won 41-22 in the state playoffs against the Trojans. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with the Dragons heading in that matchup with Monroe. So it'll be a good matchup to see where Lake Orion is at. Lake Orion, a lot of expectation this year for this team. I think this is a team that is worth watching heading into the season. So Lake Orion, definitely one of those teams to watch heading into the year. Now, another team to keep an eye on this year is the Oxford Wildcats. Of course, the Wildcats has had some struggles in the last couple seasons, but a lot of optimism surrounding this Oxford Wildcat program. So here is Oxford coach Bud Riley at the podium.
Hello, my name is Bud Riley. I'm from Oxford High School. And John, I'm glad you're gone. No, I played him back in the old days, and we got our ass handed to us by him all the time. He just kicked the hell out of us, but that's right. Good man, great guy, great coach, and a legacy that runs from here to Ferndale. Guy's a great guy, great coach, and love him to death. I love giving him shit. All right. My players are gonna introduce themselves.
Marcus Hofnagel, senior captain, outside linebacker, and tight end. Trent Mears, senior, running back, safety. Austin Schlick, outside linebacker, fullback.
Sam Barrett, senior, offensive lineman, inside linebacker.
We're not going to talk much. Great league all the way through. The red, the white, and the blue is awesome. We love football. You guys are playing the greatest game in the world. The greatest game in the world. And it's not about these coaches. It's about you guys. These coaches ain't running the sprints. These coaches aren't playing the nutcracker. You are. And it's a hats off to you people. Because it's a 12-month game now for you guys. And so it ain't about the coaches. We're very, very fortunate to have you guys come and play and bust your ass every day. And I'm excited. Coach Vernon, where you at? Great job, big guy. We thank you very much. We live in a great country. This is the greatest game in the world. We love football. Go OAA. Thank you.
You know, Coach Bud Riley is probably one of the most passionate speakers I've seen in a long time. You know, but when you look at the strength of his team, of course, the biggest concern I have, of course, has been his defense. Of course, ever since Oxford came in the OAA, they have allowed over 200 points in the last 8 years. That's not going to get the job done. So I addressed Coach Bud Riley about the defense heading into the season. I got Oxford Coach Bud Riley here, of course. Coach Riley, one of the things we talked about last year, and I know when we talked was your defense, of course. It was a rough year last year for your defense.
It was a very rough year, very rough. We didn't do well, but this is this year, and that's what we're looking forward to. We're looking for 2018. We're looking for Romeo's coming to our house the 24th.
How's your quarterback situation looking?
Our quarterback is very good. He was our tailback last year. He's very athletic. His name is Drew Carpenter. He's 6 foot tall. He's 180 pounds, and he's an athlete. So we're looking forward to Drew coming in and running the show.
What is your expectation this year, Coach?
Win.
Thank you real much. Thank you very much, Coach.
Yes, sir.
You know, Oxford's interesting for Oxford. Of course, they're converting Drew Carpenter to be the quarterback this year. You look at, of course, Trent Murray, he was a receiver last year. Now he's going to be a running back. So a lot of interesting parts for Oxford this upcoming season. The line is a concern a little bit for this team as well heading into the year. Of course, anytime you have a pound the rock system like Oxford does, you have to have good line play to be successful. And it'll be very interesting to see what Oxford has, especially when it comes to the schedule. Of course, Oxford does open up the year at home against Romeo. Of course, Oxford is 2-2 in the last 2 seasons, in the last 4 seasons against Romeo. Of course, 2-0 on the blue turf of Oxford. Of course, 2 years ago, Oxford went and stunned Romeo 27-26 a year ago. 2 years ago, not so much last year at the Big House when Romeo went and beat Oxford there. Week 2, they take on Lake Orion for the Double O Trophy. As mentioned, Oxford's lost 3 straight to Lake Orion. That'll be at Lake Orion, so that'll be a very interesting matchup right there when Oxford takes the ride down south, M24, to take on the Dragons. And then September the 7th, they take on West Bloomfield. Oxford's lost 4 straight games to the Lakers. So that's going to be another tough matchup for Oxford in that one. September the 14th, they do take on Southfield Arts and Tech. Of course, last year the Warriors beat the Wildcats 32-12 a year ago. So it'll be very interesting to see what Oxford does this time around. September the 21st, they take on Rochester Adams. Of course, last year Oxford lost 33-13 to the Highlanders. September the 28th, they take on Stony Creek. Of course, the Wildcats have won 3 straight games against the Cougars, so it'll be a very interesting matchup right there. Curious to see how the coaching matchup is between Bud Riley and Nick Merlo. Be a good matchup there. October the 5th, they take on Clarkston. As mentioned, Clarkston's Oxford's lost 7 straight to Wolves, so that's going to be a really interesting. It'll be very interesting to see what Oxford does against Clarkston. Of course, curious to see in that one how those 2 physical football teams are going to do. October the 12th, of course, they take on Bloomfield Hills. The Blackhawks beat the Wildcats 26-14 last year. And then week 9, of course, they play Troy Athens to be at Troy Athens. Of course, Billy Keenis is there. Of course, Keenis played under Coach Riley. And then last year, Keenis led the Bears to Oxford last year. Of course, now Keenis is the new head coach at Troy Athens. So very interesting matchup this year between the Wildcats and the Redhawks. Of course, if you want to catch the Wildcats this year, you can catch our good friends at Oxford Community Television watching covering the Wildcats this year. I know Bill Self and them, they do a very good job over there covering the Wildcats. So it'll be interesting to see what Oxford has this upcoming season. They're going to be a team worth watching this upcoming season. Okay, now when we come back, we're going to preview the other two teams here on the OAA Now football preview show, Red Edition here on ON TV. Welcome back to OAA Now's football preview show here. I'm Sammy Termina here. Next team we're going to cover is the Warriors of Southfield Arts and Tech. Last year, this was a very unusual year for the Warriors, of course, not making the postseason. But the Warriors this year they're going to be replacing a quarterback, of course. They got a quarterback to replace. They got a lot of athletes this year. So here is Southfield offensive coordinator Aaron Marshall at the podium. Now, normally Coach Tim Conley does not usually come to Media Days, but Aaron Marshall is here at Media Day. Here's his take on the Warriors.
Good afternoon. I'm Coach Aaron Marshall. I'm the offensive coordinator at Southfield A&T. Coach Conley, our head coach, had a prior commitment, but he wished everybody the best, and he said to make sure everybody stay healthy this season. I want to start by thanking Rochester for having us and hosting the event. Next, like everybody else, this listening to everybody reminds me of a quote when they talk about Coach Harrington. Walter Payton said, "When you're good, you'll go around telling everybody how good you are. When you're great, people will come tell you." I want to say thank you for, you don't remember me, but I went to Brother Rice and I played against you as well growing up. But we had some battles. Even here at Southfield, coaching against you. This will be my 5th season coordinating coming up. My 6th year at Southfield total. And we've had some battles. I'm talking double overtime, triple overtime. I mean, this guy right here set the standard. And we always know we gotta bring our best when we come to face Coach Harrington and Harrison. So just thanks for everything that you've done throughout the years. This team that we have coming back, we got 14 returning starters between offense and defense. One thing we're really excited about, this is the highest academic team we've had in a few years, and as a coaching staff, we really believe that grades carry over to the field, right? We're firm believers in how we act academic, how we act through the hallways in our school will tell us a lot about the kind of team that we have, and like I say, this is one of the highest overall GPA teams we've had in the last few years. We got a brand new field, so if you came to Southfield and played at our field in the last couple of years, you know how terrible our field was. It was about 15 years old, but we got a brand new field now, so we're excited. So no more divots like the golf course or anything running through our field. This is definitely the best conference. I watch football a lot. I actually went to Brother Rice here for 2 years, then I moved to Chicago, went to Mount Carmel. So I've seen football in a lot of different states and a lot of different conferences. The OAA is hands down the best conference that I've personally seen. I haven't been everywhere, but I can say over 3 states. I went to Youngstown State in Ohio. I followed that high school football a lot. 3 different states I've seen this conference from top to bottom in all our divisions, I would absolutely say is the most competitive conference. And we're really proud to be a part of it. I brought 3 guys with me today Coach Conley wanted me to bring. These are 3 of our returning of the 14 guys that have actually already committed to a college, right? Which at the end of the day, that's what we're out here for. We want to turn boys into men, and we want to take them to the next level. So I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, and I'll talk a little bit more about them after.
Marcus Fuqua, senior safety. Nick Jones, senior corner.
Devin Bull, senior defensive interior starter, tight end.
Marcus Fuqua, he's been with us on varsity since a sophomore. He's committed to Buffalo. Behind me, Nick Jones is committed to Ball State. He's a returning starter as well. And Devin Baldwin is committed to Western Michigan. So we're really excited. about the guys that we have coming back, but like I said before, most of all because of how they are academically. So that's going to tell us a lot how it's going to transfer over to the field. So once again, Rochester, thanks for having us. Thanks for hosting, and be safe, everybody, in this 2018 season.
Anytime you have you're great academically, you're going to get on the field and you're going to get great results. And that's what Southfield, and that's what Marshall said in his presser, of course. This is the best Southfield football team academically. And that says a lot considering what the Warriors have went through in the past. But when you look at the Warriors' strength, as he mentioned, overall speed, experience, the question marks are going to be, and we're going to go over the schedule in a minute, but I caught up in an interview with Marshall explaining the state of the Warriors. Southfield Arts and Tech assistant coach Adam Marshall here. Of course, last season was kind of a very odd year. You won 4-5 a year ago. So talk about what happened last year with that group.
We graduated a lot of seniors a year before, and so we were really young last year. We got a lot, I could say about 14 seniors coming back, returning starters. So we're really excited about this season. But last year was kind of a trial through fire, and we got to hand it to us a lot, which personally I think is good for our program, good for our boys coming back. They kind of had that chip on their shoulder because they don't want it to happen again.
Talk about your tough schedule. You got to play River Rouge, and then you got to play Davidson. Your tough non-conference. So talk about that for you guys.
Yeah, one thing about Coach Connolly, he always wants us to play the best. He always wants to open up with a real quality opponent. We want to end the season the same way, head into the playoffs. We kind of want to be battle tested. We want to know what we got right out the gate, straight off. So last year, Davidson game, triple overtime, a barn burner. Then, of course, playing our tough OAA schedule really helps you prepare for if you're fortunate enough and blessed to make it to the offseason.
What's your expectations this year?
We don't really set expectations. We just want to get better every day, and we'll take it how it comes. One expectation we have academically is that we better be sound and on an honor roll as a team. So once we take care of that, we believe everything else will take care of itself.
Thank you real much, Coach.
Thank you.
The Warriors' schedule, as mentioned, is going to be very, very daunting. And it's perhaps I call it near borderline Oak Park-like. They open up the year at Wayne State August 24th against Davidson. Now, last year, Davidson and South A&T went triple overtime. And the Warriors lost 56-54. Now, Davidson is a much different team now. When you look at, of course, Davidson's got a new coach there. They still got the quarterback back in Cannon Hall, so that'll be very interesting how he does against the Warriors. But I think Southfield, is going to be a little bit more better prepared for this time around against a Davidson team that's going to have to go through a coaching transition and a whole new system when you look at that Davidson Cardinal team at Wayne State. August 31st, they got to play Rochester. Of course, Southfield took out Rochester from the playoffs in 2015 by winning that one 42-7. Of course, Southfield made that run in made a run to the playoffs that season as well. September the 7th, they play Bloomfield Hills. Of course, they lost at home to the Blackhawks 23-22 a season ago. That was a really tough loss that kept them out of the playoffs that year. September the 14th, they take on Oxford. Of course, they have won the last two meetings against the Wildcats. So that'll be very interesting in that matchup there. Of course, with the Warriors going against the Wildcats. September 21st is a big one for them. They take on Clarkson at Southfield. Of course, last year, Southfield lost 17-7 to Clarkston. But 2 years ago at Southfield, of course, the Warriors won an overtime game 24-18 over the Wolves 2 years ago. So that'll be a very interesting matchup there. September the 28th, I think that Lake Orion game is going to be very interesting because the last time Lake Orion went into Southfield, the Dragons won there 21-14. But Southfield did go into Lake Orion last year and beat Lake Orion 24-16 last season. So I think it's going to be a nip and tuck game between the Warriors and the Dragons in that one. Then October the 5th is a game against West Bloomfield. Now, this is one I think that sticks in the minds of Southfield players and fans. The Warriors gave up 62 points at home last year to the Lakers. That's not good. And hopefully, I know the Warriors will be up and motivated for that game against the Lakers. Going to the Swamp, that's not going to be an easy game for them. But, you can't allow 62 points in the game. That's just unheard of what they did last year in that one. But Southfield Arts and Tech should be ready to go for that one. October the 12th, they go to Rochester Adams. Of course, they lost 38-14 to the Highlanders a year ago. So that'll be another interesting matchup. Then they close out the year with River Rouge. It's the first meeting ever between the two teams. River Rouge is one of those teams that could be a team worth mentioning this year. They're very talented, very, very good. I mean, there's no doubt it'll be a test for Southfield Arts and Tech taking on a very good River Rouge team going down there to River Rouge, and that's not going to be an easy game for that one, for the Warriors. So that is my thoughts on the Warriors hanging in the year. Now we go to the state runner-ups of Division I, the Lakers of West Bloomfield. Last year, a lot of success for Coach Ron Bellamy and his team, but now the expectations, can they get back to Ford Field? Is it possible? It is. So here's Ron Bellamy talking state of the Lakers.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. First and foremost, I want to thank Coach Vernon and Rochester High School. Great job, Coach. I know a lot of work goes into this, so we as coaches, I think I speak for everyone to say thank you. Coach Harrington, I have my own personal relationship with Coach Harrington. Even before I became a high school football coach, one of my best friends, Drew Stanton, I got a chance to be around Coach Harrington's program, and it reminded me a lot of my high school coach. I'm from Louisiana, I'm from New Orleans, and some of the same principles that you preach to your kids. Your kids are 40 years old now, 30 years old, they're fathers, husbands. It's the same what you do. You guys are lucky. This man is a wonderful person, wonderful human being. You developed this landscape here at this OAA. Every single coach in here, you set the standard, coach, that we're all chasing. And for me being this will be my 9th year at West Bloomfield, I always looked up to you as a person that I wanted to emulate and have some of the same successes that you had. I've always leaned on you, and I'm forever grateful for all the experiences and opportunities that you've given me. Thank you for everything, Coach. I'll look on our football team. Before I begin, Coach Richardson, I want to tell you congratulations again. State championship, it was a weird game, but a hard-fought game nonetheless. And all the rest of the coaches that's in our league. In our conference at OAA, we continue to battle other conferences. You go into playoffs, and the challenge every week is to survive and advance. This league sets you up for that success. This past year was our first year making a run, but I got an opportunity to watch the Kirk Richardson teams. Coach Petrino, I got a chance to watch your teams. Coach Flaherty, I've watched the Lake Orion teams with Chris Bale and some of those teams. I've watched Coach Raleigh's teams with those Oxford teams. One of the things that you notice is during the playoffs, our teams are ready to go. Physically, mentally, we're stronger than most teams. And that's because of these guys leading these programs. Let's not underestimate what we're capable of as coaches and what this league is. Every Friday night when we lace them up, you know it's going to be a hell of a football game. And these kids know it. One of the things, you hear the kids talk about it all the time is that team is going to be good because of the coaches they have on their team. Those coaches don't get those kids ready. I know myself, being a younger coach, some of the coaches I looked up to pregame, talking to Coach Richardson, talking to Coach Bale, talking to Coach Raleigh, just talking to Coach Conley, talking to some of these coaches before the game and wondering, how did you guys have the success you had? And what makes this league unique and these coaches unique is they share this information with you. And I look at us as a brotherhood. And that's what makes us the strongest league in the state of Michigan. Probably one of the stronger leagues in the Midwest. So let's continue to build our league. Let's continue to sell our brand and make sure everyone knows that the OAA is the best football league in the state of Michigan. I want to introduce a few of our football players. Trey Mosley here. Trey's been on varsity for 3 years now. Trey is one of the top receivers in Michigan. He recently committed to Michigan State. Lance Dixon, he's an outside linebacker. He plays the viper position in our defense. Lance is also a 3-year starter. He recently committed to Penn State. Makari Page here is going to be his 2nd year in varsity. He'll be a junior. Makari plays free safety. Cornell Wheeler, this will be his 3rd year on varsity. Started 5 games as a freshman. Cornell's a Mike linebacker. B. Jackson Laird, his 1st year on varsity, senior offensive tackle. And C.J. Harris, this will be his 1st year on varsity. He's a junior, he's a quarterback. Really proud of these guys, really proud of the leadership that they've bestowed on our team thus far. Looking forward to a great year this upcoming season. outlook for us, we lost 31 seniors this past football season. It seems like a lot. Coach lost 39, so we can't complain too much. But we really like the young crop that we have. These guys have bought into the program, bought into the system, and like all the coaches mentioned with Coach Harrington, the goal for us is to play for West Bloomfield, play for our community, and let's see what happens. Good luck this year, stay healthy, and thank you for everything.
I agree with everything Coach Ron Bellamy said, that, you know, it is a brotherhood, you know, a lot of everybody's supportive of each other. I do agree that, you know, the OA does get you playoff ready, and it clearly showed last year in the Division I state finals when you had two OA red teams make the state finals in West Bloomfield and Clarkston. So both those teams made it to state finals, of course, really putting this league on notice. Really putting the entire state of Michigan actually on notice. The strength of this team, as Bellamy mentioned, of course, you got Trey Mosley, you got Lance Dixon, both of them are Big Ten recruits. They're going to be young, but they got a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism. This is a very good Laker program. I caught up with Ron Bellamy, explaining some concerns of mine heading about his team. All right. Anyway, we got West Bloomfield football coach Ron Bellamy here. Of course, Coach Bellamy, you went to state final a year ago. You're replacing a lot of talent though, but you got a lot back.
Yeah, we're excited about this group. You know, last year's team made a state final. That was a great accomplishment for our high school, for our community, for the kids in our program. But, you know, we're setting our sights on this 2018 season, and the kids have been working hard. And, you know, this is the fun part about it, losing the talent but trying to develop the next batch.
Talk about CJ a little bit, of course. He's your starting quarterback now. What is the expectations for Mr. CJ Harris this year?
To be himself. You know, CJ replaces Bryce Veasley, 2-year starter for us. Bryce has moved on to Bowling Green, and, you know, CJ, you know, learned behind, you know, a great player in Bryce, but CJ has to be the best CJ. That's all we asked him to do. He's surrounded with some talented players, so we just hope that, you know, CJ can, you know, be the leader that he's poised to be.
What is your expectation this year?
To compete every game, to compete every practice, to get better, and most importantly for us is to have fun.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
What I also love about Coach Bellamy's system, of course, he has a quarterback coach named Zach Hilbers, of course. We interviewed Hilbers a couple times on the preview show as well, but Hilbers is a really good guy, too. So Coach Bellamy does a great job with that staff over there at West Bloomfield, and he does a great job developing his players and talent over there at West Bloomfield. Now, a schedule can be very interesting when you look at the they got to go to Beverly Hills this year to open up now. They're taking on the Groves Falcons, of course. Last year, West Bloomfield beat Groves in the swamp. The last two meetings were in the swamp, where of course the Lakers won last year, but then last year they were forced to forfeit. Forced to forfeit one game because they had an eligible player. But the game with Groves will be very interesting. I think it's going to be a very unique matchup there in that one. Then August 31st, they have Clarkston. They got to go to Clarkston, which is not going to be an easy game for them, of course. As mentioned, they lost 3-2 in the state final last year to the Wolves, but they got them in the regular season a year ago. They blew out the Wolves that year in the regular season. September 7th, they take on Oxford. Of course, West Bloomfield's won the last 4 meetings against the Wildcats. So that'll be a unique matchup right there. Week 4, they take on Bloomfield Hills. Of course, the Lakers are 4-1 against the Blackhawks in their last 5 meetings. Of course, last year they played twice. Of course, they both split the meetings, of course, in the swamp. So that'll be very interesting there with the Lakers and the Blackhawks. And September 21st is the game against Lake Orion. Of course, West Bloomfield's won 5 straight meetings against Lake Orion. So it'll be a very interesting matchup right there. September the 28th, they take on Rochester Adams. Of course, they won 17-16 over at Adams a year ago. Now that game's in the swamp. So we'll see what happens there. October the 5th, they take on Southfield Arts and Tech, of course, as mentioned. On Southfield's part, they put up 62 on the Warriors last year in Southfield. Now Warriors have to go to the swamp. The 28th game with Adams, I think that game's at Adams. And then October the 12th, they do play Oak Park. Of course, it's the first meeting since 2011 where Oak Park won 18-16. It's going to be a great match between two teams that are going to be really up there. I think poised to make long, deep playoff runs this year. And then October the 19th, they are at home against the Catholic League's Central's 4th place team. So you're going to be playing Novi Detroit Catholic Central, Birmingham Brother Rice, Gordon DeSalle, or Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Now, when I look at the Lakers' outlook this year, of course, a lot of people are high on them. Detroit News ranked West Bloomfield 9th in their preseason coaches poll. Very interesting how West Bloomfield's gotten a lot of hype surrounding this team. Of course, last year's team definitely proved that this team will be back. It would not surprise me this year West Bloomfield goes to Ford Field this year. It really would not surprise me if Coach Bellamy and his team is back at Ford Field. Now, I know they're going to have to go through Detroit Cass Tech. I dare think they're a better team than Detroit Cass Tech, in my opinion. And I dare say maybe even better than Belleville, in my opinion. So that's just my opinion on the Lakers. So when I look at the picks in the red this year, West Bloomfield obviously has to be the favorite when you look at the Lakers. I got them at 8-1. I think that game at Oak Park could give them some trouble. But who knows? See what West Bloomfield has. I think 8-1 is a pretty good record for them. Clarkston, when I look at them, I'm a little concerned about their numbers, their lack of depth there. I mean, I know they're going to be relying a lot on Splinter and Dillinger a lot to carry them in the running attack. But I think when you look at Clarkston, I think that this is a team where they could make some noise. I think they could make an impact this year. Lake Orion is my third place team. I think the Dragons, last year not being in the playoffs, I think their talent this year is a little bit better than they had. If they stay disciplined, I think Lake Orion can win 6 games. Adams, same thing. I think Adams, they got a young team back. I really love Carter Ferris. When I look at Adams, they're going to be a really good team heading into the year. Southfield, Arson Tech, 5-4. They got the talent. I'm real worried about the schedule when you look at the Warriors. The schedule frightens me when I look at Southfield. But I think, when I look at this here, I think Southfield can be a playoff team heading into the year as well. Even though at 5-4, but I just think the red is very, very vicious. And I think it wouldn't surprise me if the league does get 5 teams in there. I have Oxford at 3-6. I think the schedule, as mentioned in the Bloomfield Hills, 2-7, replacing a lot of talent a year ago from last year. I think it could be a rough year at Bloomfield Hills. Oxford, I think it could be a very interesting year, but it would not surprise me if 5 teams from the red gets into the playoffs this year. It would not surprise me. And I think 5 teams from the red will get in the playoffs this year. And then when I look at the preseason top 10, of course, I have West Bloomfield number 2 to start the year. I have Adams 5, Southfield Arson Tech 6, Clarkson 7, Lake Orion at 10. And when you look at it here, I think the red is one of the most deepest in the entire state of Michigan. When you look at the teams that are in this league, and when you look at the teams that could do very well in this league, this is by far the toughest division in the state of Michigan, the OA Red, and the OA as a whole. This is the toughest conference. So my final thoughts to everybody here. I wish everybody the best of luck this year. Of course, my rankings, will be up on my blog at Sammy_Termina at blogspot.com. But I wish everybody, all 23 teams this year, the best of luck this upcoming season. Let's get the OA to Ford Field this year, and let's have a lot of success this upcoming season. I wish everybody the best of luck and the entire Oakland Activity Association. Good luck, everybody. Take care, and see you all soon. Take care, everybody.